Into the hollow. I've been an avid hiker my whole life. There's something about the solitude of the mountains, the quiet of the woods, that makes me feel alive. But after what happened last fall, I haven't set foot on a trail since. Every night when I close my eyes, I see asterisk at asterisk, and I'll never forget what I found in that hollow. It was late October, the tail end of the season, when the air is cool and the trails are empty. Perfect hiking weather. I had a long weekend and decided to check out a trail I'd heard about through a few friends. It was deep in the Smoky Mountains, isolated, barely marked on maps. They called it the Hollow. Be careful if you go there, they'd warned me. It's easy to get lost. That didn't scare me. I was an experienced hiker. In fact, it was exactly what I wanted. Something off the grid, quiet, far from the usual tourist trails. So on a Friday morning, I packed up my gear and drove to the base of the mountain. The trailhead was nothing more than a dirt patch tucked away behind a grove of trees. There wasn't a single car in sight. Perfect. I slung my pack over my shoulder and headed in, feeling the weight of the forest settle around me. There's something magical about hiking alone. The world shrinks down to just you, the earth beneath your feet, and the canopy above. For the first few hours, the hike was uneventful. The trail wound through dense trees, the path soft with fallen leaves. I spotted a few deer, heard the occasional rustle of wildlife. But otherwise, it was silent, peaceful. Then, around mid-afternoon, I noticed something strange. The trees began to change. It was subtle at first, the way the bark seemed darker, almost charred in places. And then I noticed the silence. The usual sounds of the forest, birds, insects, even the wind through the trees, were gone. The air felt heavier, thicker somehow, as if it was pressing down on me. Still, I pressed on. The hollow was supposed to be at the top of the ridge, and I figured I was getting close. But as I walked, the trail became harder to follow. The path, which had been clearly marked, started to fade, the underbrush growing thicker. I slowed, scanning for markers, but there were none. I checked my map, nothing unusual. I should have been right on track. But the further I went, the more disoriented I became. The landscape didn't match what the map showed. No streams, no clearings, just endless trees, all dark and gnarled like something out of a nightmare. That's when I saw the cabin. It was nestled between two ancient oaks, almost swallowed by the forest. The wood was gray with age, the roof sagging, vines crawling up the sides. It didn't look like anyone had lived there in decades, but what struck me the most was that it wasn't on the map. There wasn't supposed to be any structure up here. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I was too far now. Curiosity got the better of me, so I approached. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking as I nudged it open. Inside, it was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of rot. The floor was covered in leaves and dirt, and the furniture, if you could call it that, was little more than broken chairs and a table with one leg missing. And then I noticed something strange on the walls. They were covered in carvings, symbols I didn't recognize, intricate and twisted, etched deep into the wood. Some of them looked like runes, others like strange, contorted figures. I reached out to touch one, my fingers brushing the grooves, and felt a sudden chill run down my spine. I backed away quickly, my breath coming faster. Something about this place was wrong. The air felt heavier in here, almost suffocating. I turned to leave, but as I stepped outside, I froze. There were footprints in the dirt, fresh ones. They hadn't been there when I walked in, and they weren't mine. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the surrounding trees. I didn't see anyone, but I could feel them. Someone, or something, was watching me. The trees were too still, the air too quiet. I felt trapped, like I had stumbled into a place I didn't belong. Without thinking, I bolted down the trail, not caring where it led, just needing to get away from that cabin. The branches clawed at my face and arms, but I didn't stop. I ran for what felt like hours, but the forest never changed. The same gnarled trees, the same thick silence. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, but nothing else. No animals, no wind, just the oppressive quiet. Finally, I came to a clearing. I doubled over, gasping for breath, my legs trembling beneath me. But something wasn't right. The clearing. I had been here before. I recognized the trees, the fallen log in the middle. I had just passed this place an hour ago. I was going in circles. A wave of panic hit me, but I forced myself to think. I pulled out my map, but no matter how I turned it, it didn't make sense. The landmarks didn't match, and the trail markers had disappeared. That's when I heard the footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves behind me. I whipped around, my flashlight cutting through the dimming light, but there was nothing there. The footsteps stopped, but the feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. I backed away, my eyes scanning the tree line. I didn't know where to go, but staying in that clearing felt like a death sentence. I had to move, had to find the trail again. As I turned to leave, I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, just barely visible in the fading light. It was tall, too tall, and its limbs were impossibly long. Its face was obscured by the shadows, but I could see the glint of its eyes, watching me. It didn't move, but somehow, that was worse. It just stood there, staring, waiting. I ran. I don't know how long or how far, but I ran until my legs gave out, collapsing on the forest floor, gasping for air. I could still feel its presence behind me, always just out of sight, lurking in the shadows. I must have passed out because the next thing I remember was waking up to the sound of birds chirping. The sun had risen, and the forest was alive with sound again. But something was off. I wasn't in the same forest I had run through. The trees were lighter, the path clearer. I stumbled to my feet and, in a daze, followed the trail until I reached the parking lot where my car was parked. I looked around, half expecting to see that figure standing in the distance, watching me, but there was no one. I got in my car and drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel. I told myself it was just a nightmare, that I had gotten lost and let my mind play tricks on me. But when I emptied my backpack later that night, I found something that made my blood run cold. A single scrap of paper, torn and dirty, with one of those strange symbols from the cabin etched into it. I don't know how it got there, and I don't want to know. All I know is that something followed me out of that hollow, and no matter how far I run, I can still feel it watching me. Even now, as I write this, I can hear the faint sound of footsteps outside my window. Slow, deliberate, they haven't stopped since. Thanks for joining me on this spine-chilling journey. If you're craving more nightmares, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale of terror. Remember, the darkness is always closer than you think. Stay scared, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.